You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Brandon Allshouse. Brandon is a mastering engineer based out of Greenville, South Carolina, USA. His goal is to make the music he works on the best it can be, and the artists he works with proud of the final outcome. I've seen Brandon posting lots of useful and interesting stuff on Facebook over the past few months, and when he reached out to me that he's seen a bunch of his friends on the show, I jumped on the opportunity to invite him on. With all that said, welcome to the show, Secret Sonics, Brandon.
Hey, Ben. Thanks for having me. Honor.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So tell me a bit about your story. How did you get involved in, I guess, music production and maybe later on mastering?
Okay, so I've been a guitarist for 17 years now. It's hard to believe it's been that long, but, I started when I was a teenager and was always interested in the recording process. Back in early 2000s, recording gear was pretty expensive and there wasn't a ton of it out like there is now. But I would, I'd pick up some pieces here and there and try some things. And, way back when I had a Sony Acid 7, for those who remember Sony Acid. So I would mess around with some...
I've heard about it as one of those softwares people reminisce about, but
yes.
I never used it.
It's an old one. So I'd play around with like some guitar loops and, beats and whatever, but nothing ever serious. I'd buy some stuff and sell some stuff, and I've always been kind of a gear junkie anyways. But at one point it just kind of clicked and I'm like, oh, hey, this is kind of fun. Like I actually understand what I'm doing now. So I, picked up some books, started reading, watching tons and tons of YouTube videos like everybody does when they're, or at least everybody should do when they're trying to learn anything. And I guess kind of the rest is history, dude. Like it kind of just all fell in place just overnight almost.
What was that click? What was that moment that made everything click? Like what happened?
I wish I could tell you. Like I literally just bought like another interface at one point and a pair of headphones. I'm like, I'm going to try this again. And then I think it was when I picked up Studio One version 2. I think that's the one I started out on. Just how everything was laid out was super intuitive. So before, when I would try to use a recording software, I would have to like dig through settings and try to find. I remember researching once in Cubase how I could tap in a tempo, and I read for like an hour on the internet and still couldn't figure the darn thing out. And I said, okay, whatever. But when I had picked up Studio One, I'm like, wait, I can just take my mouse and click the word tempo and tap the beat in. It's that easy? Like, are you kidding me? So I'm like, wow, something that actually makes sense. And somebody, really thought out these features. So it made it super easy for me to pick up the rest and like learn how to do this stuff.
Yeah, Studio One's supposed to be a super intuitive workstation.
It's by far the most intuitive I've ever used. I tried Logic. I've tried Pro Tools. I hated Pro Tools.
Same here.
Ableton never made much sense to me either, but I was never like a DJ either, so I can see why DJs like it for live sets and whatnot. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Ableton's got its own thing. It's its own kind of beast, I think.
Exactly, yeah. It's unique in that aspect.
Nice. So at what point did you kind of decide you're going to niche down into mastering?
I started having people ask me to do masters for them. Like probably a lot of people do. Like, hey, can you master this for me? I see you do recording and mixing and whatever. And it's like, okay. And admittedly, at first, I really didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of just throwing things at songs to see what would stick. But, that we all start there, get our beginning, learn what we're doing. But despite not really knowing what I was doing, like just having a rough understanding, people would come back and tell me, hey, dude, this sounds really good. Like, okay, well, I had fun doing it, so thanks, Let me know when you got another song. So, it kind of just kept snowballing from there.
The market told you what they want.
Right. And, it just turned out I really liked it, too. did a lot of recording in the house too, but being as I'm married, I was kind of uncomfortable having complete strangers come over all the time. Not that I didn't really trust them, but like, I got my wife there too, and it's like, I don't really know you. I would hate for anything to really happen, where some stuff gets, someone steal off of us or something, because, stuff happens. But it was more of like okay, like, I like recording, but in a house setup, this just isn't going to work. So that's when I transitioned more over to mixing and mastering, and then eventually just mastering itself, because it's like, I just really like doing this a lot, and people keep telling me I'm good at it, so I'm going to give the people what they want.
Yes, love it. What appealed to you about mastering? Like, what made you like it so much? I
kind of like the technical aspect of it. Like, it's very analytical, and deep down inside, I'm a complete nerd. I just love figuring out why things work. From a young age, I was addicted to building things and playing with Legos and that kind of thing. So the challenge to me with mastering is fun. So in a mix, if you want the vocals louder, you can just raise the vocals or raise the guitars or whatever it is that you want to be louder or quieter. And with mastering, a lot of times you're working with a 2-track stereo mix down, and you can't really do the same things as easily. It's way more challenging to rebalance something without it sounding like you've dissected the mix and it falls apart.
Yeah, totally. I guess that's why people call it the dark art, right? Like,
I think so. I mean, maybe at least part of the reason why. That and mastering engineers, generally, a lot of people don't really talk a whole lot about what they do and why they do it, which is why on social media I do try to shout out a lot of what I'm doing and post screenshots and whatever. Because it's like, it's not a secret, guys. Like, I'm happy to share information when I have it.
Right. No, I love that. Yeah, and I've actually had a couple guys that mastering engineers on the show that have their own podcast, the Attack and Release Show.
Oh yeah, Sam Moses and
Matt Garber.
Yeah,
and they're just sharing everything every 2 weeks on their podcast.
Yeah, it's an awesome podcast. I love it.
Yeah, I just listened to the DDP one they just put out. It's just like such a boring. But it's interesting to hear, like, I guess it reconfirmed that I don't really want to do mastering. 'Cause, like, that doesn't really appeal to me, doing, like, DDPs and ISRCs and whatever. But, like, I'm glad that, like, there are people out there that want to do that,
There's people that are also, like, really, really technical, too, that will obsess over every single thing. And me, even though I say I like the analytical approach and how precise everything can be, I'm also in the camp of there's a part where we obsess way too much, and these things don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, a client doesn't care what converters we're using. You can go into a mastering forum and people be arguing over, should I use the Lavery Blue or the Prism converters or the Burl converters? It's like, well, you just use what sounds good to you. Like, your clients don't care as long as it sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting for, like, the technical thing and the things that people don't care about. I guess, like, the reason why I don't really want to master my mixes anymore is because at a certain point, like, I just can't hear the song anymore and do anything and think it's subjective. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
When you're at that point in the mix, it's like, maybe I should dip 250 out. It's making the vocal less muddy, but it's taking from the snare drum. Like, I can't make this decision anymore. Like, I need
but you've been listening to it for weeks, so it's like, how can you be objective to it when you've spent so much time on it already?
Yeah, I think it was Matt Garber from that show that said that the mastering engineer has no baggage. He has like zero stakes in the game. He's just coming in. Okay, what sounds good? What doesn't sound good? Mm-hmm. How much of it is like snap decisions for you? Like
it's pretty quick, dude. Like I'll pull a song in, and it's weird. Like when I'm in mastering mode, there's a lot of times I'm not even listening to words or lyrics or even arrangements. Sometimes it's just, this is the music as a whole. What is wrong? Right. What is right? And that might sound weird to some, because it's like, how can you not listen to the groove and all that? It's like, well, I mean, I do, but it's like a different mindset I'm in when I'm working. So me being completely objective, never hearing this song before for the first time, when I hit play, if there's something wrong, it's going to be the first thing I hear right off the bat. For a lot of mixers I work with and artists, it's sibilance in the vocals for whatever reason. I think it's maybe ear fatigue after a while. It's like, oh, I wish things were brighter, and you push it up a little, and then you get used to it, and it's like, why does everything sound dull? And then they give it a little more, and then before you know it, it's too much. Either that or like room discrepancies or lackluster monitoring kind of masking that range around 6K.
Right.
It's like an instant thing, I guess. You hit play, and then whatever stands out, whether it's good or bad, that's where I go from there. Sometimes that's notifying the mixer then, hey, can we get less 5.8K on the vocals, or can I get some, I had a...
Or just like push that de-esser a bit harder, right?
Yeah, I only like to push it so hard before you start negatively affecting the mix itself, because it's tricky.
No, I'm not saying yours, I'm saying the mixer.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, there's a lot competing in that range.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, especially snare drum, you got a lot of crack in the snare drum in that area.
Interesting.
Yeah, so...
I mean, someone... Actually, speaking of de-essing, somebody recently told me that he thinks de-essing is getting harder to do. I think it was Carl Bonner, who was recently on the show.
Okay.
He said, like, he thinks it's probably because a lot more people are recording at home and, like, not on, like, as great gear, that the S's are becoming more difficult to de-ess.
Right, or using cheaper microphones that are kind of sizzly in the high end to begin with and harsh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you couple that with room acoustics that just aren't great, you get all these competing frequencies. Yeah, I could agree with that. There's a lot of cool tools out there that can help, either in mixing or mastering. Things like Soothe by Oak Sound. That's an awesome tool for deharshing just about anything. And then, there's a plethora of de-essers out on the market, and then dynamic EQs as well.
Yeah. I find the dynamic EQs are a bit slow in reacting to the sibilance sometimes.
Yeah.
Or at least the Pro Q3 is.
Yeah, it can be. So when I'm looking to de-ess anything, I usually do a combination between Pro Q3, just doing some notching, dynamic notching, and DMG Essence for de-essing. And what I like about that is, I think it's the only de-esser on the market that works mid-side, in the fact that you can only de-ess the side or only the mid-channel, or
right.
both. So, if I'm trying to nail something in the vocals, I don't need it to touch the sides, so I just put it in mid-mode and focus it in there.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I know you could do that also on the Pro Q3.
Yeah, that's why the de-esser for Pro Q? Or
no, not the de-esser. The actual EQ, if you're doing like a dynamic EQ.
Yeah, so right. when I'm de-essing something, that's exactly what I do. I'll do mid-resonant dynamic filters and then mid-de-essing as well.
Yeah, I really got to check out that Soothe plugin. It sounds like it would save me a lot of headache.
yeah, it's really cool. If you're recording things and mixing, it can be a lifesaver, and it can be really cool on masters too, but it's super easy to overdo it. You can just suck the life out of everything.
Right, I guess it's like similar to if you're just notching out every single resonant.
Yeah.
That's how it works?
Pretty much, like it dynamically detects resonances and then lowers them from there. And then you can go from like a soft to a hard setting, and then the amount of reduction.
Nice. So question: when you get the final mix, and you put it in your session, do you listen to the whole song one time all the way through, or do you just start listening and start working?
Pretty much listening and then start working, because I only get one first listen.
Nice.
If I listen to it the whole way, I know there's guys that work like that and teach their own, but if I play it the whole way through, I already know how it sounds. So my first instinct of what I want things to do is no longer there. It's tainted.
Right.
So usually by the chorus, I'm already reaching for knobs on an EQ or a compressor at this point, and it's like, okay, I want to change this and this and this, and then go from there.
Nice. So you're like already by like halfway through the song, you're like,